If you have any questions, just put up your hands, and there's two other moderators. You can see Kishan and Bianca online, and they can help answer. I want to make this discussional. Kish is our head of technology, so Kish makes sure everything at the company talks to each other, and I'll show you how that does that in a second. And Bianca is head of sales, and the reason she's on this call is because in a remote organization, which we are at the moment, in fact, a lot of us are, keeping the money coming in is really important, and I'm going to show you some ways that we do that. And at least monitor the sales activity within our existing client base and externally to net new clients. So this is just a recap of what was in the email. So what are we going to cover today? So number one, how to succeed the transition to remote working. We all unfortunately went through a major, a quite sudden transition this week, and I think most of us are working remotely. I'm actually sitting in the office because there's no one else in the office, so I've got the luxury of working in quiet here, and obviously being a little bit in quarantine. Then the next thing we'll talk around is being productive, how to achieve and monitor your sales numbers and activities, because not everyone is in sales and got numbers, but people have to be productive while working remotely. And we'll discuss a few of the fears around that, choosing the right tools, and just tips from our staff, which are in this case going to be Bianca and Kish, on how this is working. Both of them are at home at the moment, and both of them spend a few days, even when we, before this quarantine around coronavirus went into place, they spend days at home every week, regardless. That's what allowed us to make this transition quite easily. So we thought we would share how we do this, and also the problems we've had. Certainly with a whole team going remote this week, we have had a few problems surface, but the good thing is I think we've been able to address them quite quickly because of our processes. So just for a few of you who don't know who we are, there's some people in the meeting room that I haven't met, and I know are not customers of our company. So what we do is we transform businesses through marketing, sales, and service technology. We use technology in marketing, in sales, and in service to know your client better, increase your leads, retain your clients. And that's essentially what we do. We're a HubSpot Diamond partner, so HubSpot generally forms the core of everything, but please, HubSpot is not the be-all and end-all when it comes to remote working. There's many fantastic tools that allow you to do it without HubSpot. So I don't want to make this about HubSpot. So let's jump into it. So why are we going towards remote working? Well, at the moment, we've got we're self-quarantining. We're trying to just not spread this virus too much. We're trying not to load our national health system. We want to increase productivity. We might want access to staff outside of our region. Sorry, there's a typo there. Certainly in our industry, we're always looking for tech staff, very hard to access generally in Johannesburg, in Cape Town as well, and around the country. We often find very good staff in Nelspruit. Or actually, funny enough, Cape Town has got a plethora of good tech staff, but remote working allows you to push the net of where your staff are quite significantly. Obviously, we're still bound by time zones, but it does help this. And staff retention. What we've done recently, and I will show you how to, well, not recently, for at least the last 2 years, is our dashboards and metrics. All our staff have numbers. They have access to 1 or 2 remote days per week. So we're not fully remote, but we do allow 1 to 2 days remote per week, depending on performance. And these are easy KPIs to achieve. But we'll show you that as well. So this is the important one. Why are we as managers? And I know some of you aren't managers. I'm sure some of you are if you're thinking about this. And I mean, these are my fears around remote working. So loss of control, fear of people slacking off, people not available on demand. Don't underestimate when everyone is in the office, and I think everyone is feeling this at the moment. the ability to just walk over to someone in your office and ask them a question. One of the things we said to our team yesterday was, if you're struggling or you're overloaded with work, please put up your hand. Tell someone on chat or tell your manager, because we can't actually see that you're drowning. Certain of our team, when they're really, really under the pump and they're working hard, and we can actually physically see that they're spinning. This is the sort of stuff you can't do when you are working remotely. So that people on demand thing is a major, major thing. For me, fear of people slacking off. I have no doubt that a load of South Africans right now are sitting watching TV and not working. And the question is, how do we actually manage them to get their work done? And in actual fact, I would argue that sometimes with remote working, people could be more productive. So instead of working 8 hours in the office, they could maybe get their work done in 4 hours, 5 hours. Should they be allowed to go watch TV or pick the kids up? These are the questions that we need to ask. Bianca, Kish, I don't know if you guys are managers in the business. I don't know if you want to add anything to this.
I think, yeah. So I think from a sales perspective, because I do head up the sales, I am kind of fortunate enough to not have a massive team under me, for example, you, Luke, or Kishan, where you have to kind of monitor their daily stuff. But I think it's important to make sure that whatever you are doing as well as you are also having so it is, adhering to that self-discipline and all that kind of stuff. And I think a big contributing factor is also considering that some of us have kids at home. The schools are also closed. So it's making sure you kind of prioritize your day to make sure that you are still kind of getting your work done, but also having a balance at home is how to kind of manage, a toddler screaming in the background when having these important meetings. So I think from that perspective, it's just making sure that, from the onset, whenever you are communicating, whether it be with a prospect or whether it's with a customer, you are actually just saying, understand that I am working from home, and just create that expectation that if your toddler does run through the background of your screen, that they do understand your circumstances as well. So that's just from my point of view.
And we know that has happened with you so far. Okay.
I think from my point of view, Luke, the big thing you spoke about there was output, and we'll get into that a little bit more later in the webinar. But like you said, whether it's done in 4 hours or 8 hours, I think it's just very important that the output is defined going into each day, and that's a great way of avoiding that fear of people slacking off. When clear goals are set during the day, it diminishes that fear completely, because you know what the output is, and it's a lot easier to track.
And look, I know you're going to touch on this later, because I think we've found that very clear definition of what the output for the day is was a problem for us, with everyone suddenly going remotely. So I don't want to steal your thunder there, because I know you've got some ideas. And just this week, we've plugged some holes with that. So I want you to share that in a sec. Let me just move on to the slides. So I mean, that's kind of defining what the problems are and the questions we're asking around this. But let's go into how we think you do remote working well. And there's no right way to do this. But certainly we've thought about it a lot, and we seem to have transitioned into it very, very well. Zero productivity losses so far. A few little HR niggles, just getting people to make sure everyone is communicating properly. And I think communication is the major one, but the productivity has been very good. So I think we're in a good position to say, to share this. So the first thing that I want to cover, and it's the most important thing in my opinion, is live chat. In this day and age, you cannot do remote working without live chat. And dependent on whether you're a Microsoft house or not, you're going to be using Microsoft Teams or Slack. But chat is integral. You cannot communicate via email. And I wrote down here the best way for people to ask those informal, quick questions and keep one another updated without the interruption of a phone call or the faff of an email. Best regards, dear so-and-so, is chat. It really, really cuts down on all the fluff. So I just screenshotted some analytics from the last 30 days. But, for a team of, 15, 16, we're a small team. We sent 5,500 messages on Slack in the last 30 days, which is pretty darn amazing. This peak over here is a Monday. So, and those are all Mondays there. So interestingly, it's slightly higher than that Monday, slightly higher than, about the same actually, or a little bit less than the previous Monday on February the 24th. So as you can see, it doesn't seem like too much has changed for us. I'd be interested to see Tuesday. That data is not through anymore. But yes, Slack for us is critical. I don't know, Kish, you're part of the production team. I mean, internally, we have a rule not to use email internally. Email is for client comms. I mean, do you want to comment anything on Slack?
Yeah, I think what's great is there's quite a new feature from Slack in the last 6 months ago, where you can actually direct message multiple people. So before it would be just a one-to-one direct message or a channel. And channels can get quite messy sometimes because you've got different divisions all working on a project. So they're all part of that channel. But what you can do now is just say, I could Slack a direct message to both you, Luke, and Bianca about something. And it kind of forms a mini thread. So that's also improved the comms that we do as well.
Yeah, no. I see Chaluba's just joined. Hi, Chaluba. She works at a company called Decision Inc., and they're a big Microsoft house, so they use Microsoft Teams extensively for this. I'd be interested to see to note how the usage of Microsoft Teams has gone while they're remote. I'm hoping they're remote. So the next one is sort of a little bit of what we're doing now, but I mean, we do video conferences every day. Our chosen platform is Zoom. We also sometimes use a little bit of Google Hangouts. We choose Zoom mostly because we can record the sessions and provide them to everyone else at a later stage. Skype, I find, we don't use internally. I use it with a few of our clients, but Zoom is definitely the one. And we find just in terms of scheduling, our integration into HubSpot, for example, our integration into Google Calendar is really, really works nicely. Now, a few caveats around this with regards to video conferencing. One of the rules we've implemented when you're working remotely is you have to have your video on. None of this, your video off and sit in a meeting while you're remote and you're doing something else. You need to be engaged, and I think a lot of us are feeling this at the moment. We're feeling a little bit isolated. We're not interacting with people as much as we used to. So I think we're getting a little bit of a feeling of this craving for seeing people. And if you're going for extended periods of working without communicating and with people in person, with the normal stuff that happens, shaking hands, conversing over a table, keeping the video on in video communications is critical. It works really well for just connecting us while we're remotely. Kish and Bianca, I don't know if you want to comment anything on around video, something that I've maybe missed and how we use it.
No, I think just to kind of add to that, Luke, so, I'm quite a social person. So for me, it is important to make sure I still see some faces and all that kind of stuff. So something that I've just taken into this kind of quarantine period is You know, a lot of people don't want to switch on their video because they might not have like done their hair, or they, you know, they're still like in their pajamas and stuff. But what I've religiously done since we've been starting like proper remote working is to make sure I still stick within my routine. Even though I maybe start working at 7:30 or at 7, I'm still up at the same times that I would get up as I would drive to the office. I still do my shower, still do the hair, the makeup, everything, because I know that, you know, I'm going to be presenting myself, and I'm still going to be the face for the company from a sales perspective. So I still need to look that part as well. So, and I think from a sales perspective, you know, I can't have a sales meeting when, you know, the person isn't able to see my face. It's important that we're still looking at, you know, we're still buying from humans. So it's important that we still kind of keep that face up front from a video perspective.
Yeah, and have you been doing sales meetings this week with the client?
100%. I have, yeah. I know we are chatting about that a little bit later, so then I'll just kind of give my 5 cents on that, but definitely been doing some sales meetings, yes.
Okay, and then I think Kish, I mean, I want you to talk a little bit about, I mean, well, we'll go into the details of it, but I mean, you do a stand-up every morning, or you're part of it, the production team, and it's all done by video, right?
Yeah, that's all done via video. And I think to your point of keeping the video on, that contributes a lot to that meeting, especially a meeting where you've got the full company-wide staff. You've got 14, 15 people sitting on a meeting. You know, it can become a little bit difficult to manage. Just that face-to-face interaction does make a huge difference to that meeting.
Yeah, I found exactly the same, and hence the rule. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, this moves into our stand-ups, and this is very much where we actually had a bit of a problem. Because we would do remote working and we would have a few people off site every day, but suddenly we actually had the entire team off site every day, and we actually found it a little bit difficult, and we started missing a few things. So we started with morning stand-ups, which we did in the morning normally while we're in the office, but then we also started with end-of-day stand-ups, and we actually found that they weren't really doing the trick, because everyone was doing these stand-ups and saying, yes, we'll do everything, but we actually weren't checking in and making lists to get things done. Now, it was weird because in the office, when everyone was here, this worked perfectly. As soon as we went remotely, it actually fell apart and things started falling through the cracks. So there's a number of these daily meetings need to happen, and I'll go into the weekly meetings just now, but which we have every Monday. But Kish, I know you did a lot of thinking around these, and we've actually over the last 2 or 3 days we've fixed them. But I mean, they really did fall apart on Monday.
Yeah, I think a big factor in that is, like you say, you can't just get up and check in with people. When we're all at the office, you know, the meeting is done in the morning, and then if anything comes up during the day, it's very easy to just grab 2 or 3 people who are involved and have a little impromptu check-in. And I think that's the part that really fell off when we all went remote. So we kind of rejigged this meeting a little bit, where it's a lot more goal-focused. So the basic format of this meeting is we go around the room and everybody goes through what they need to get done in the day. And it's a little bit detailed. It's not, we don't delve into too much detail, but it's very goal oriented. So if I'm working on client X and I'm working on setting up dashboards, I plan on getting 3 out of my 6 dashboards set up by the end of today for client X. And then what we do is we start set priorities to these tasks. What is your one priority for the day? That kind of mitigates those little check-ins that you do during the office, because everybody during that stand-up knows that is the main goal for that staff member for the day. We also raise issues that we might face during the day in that stand-up. So we've got one of our strategists has quite a few internal meetings today, which affects his workload. So he kind of just flagged that, so we know, okay, there might be something that an internal meeting that we can push out in order to achieve a goal. And then the end of day stand-ups are just a check-in, just to see the goals that we set in the morning. How are we doing towards them? Have we achieved what we need to achieve? What has been missed out? Why was it missed out? And how do we give that more focus?
Cool, thanks, Kish. So, and then obviously you need your weekly meetings, which I think most of us have already, and they're part of company, the way the companies work. But on a Monday morning we have a sales meeting, a finance meeting, and an account managers meeting. And Wednesday we have a client sales and marketing strat meeting. And then on Mondays as well we have a company-wide stand-up meeting. And these meetings happen exactly the same as they did remotely as when we weren't working remotely. And we find this cadence of check-ins really works well with, but just note, very important what Kish said around goal-orientated. I called them to-do lists in this presentation, but goals is, for the day, so important. It's definitely where our process fell apart as we moved remotely. So the next one is being able to measure performance. So what are we measuring? Productivity, sales activity, revenue. Bear in mind, we're a consulting firm, so we sell outcomes, which can loosely be broken down into hours of consulting. I mean, we don't necessarily sell hours to our client base, we sell outcomes, but internally we measure that based on hours. And then obviously we will measure sales in terms of revenue. And that's the way we do this is a CRM, which in our case is HubSpot, but it could quite easily be Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, Pipedrive, etc. We have a project management software called Acello, but there's a whole bunch of other ones, Workflow Max from Xero, Basecamp, there's loads of them. We'll do a little bit of a demo just now on how our systems link together and work. And then of course, time tracking. And I know this is not easy for everyone, but certainly in our game, the time tracking is very, very important. The image on the top is from Acello, and these are just some of our staff complement that are measured here. It's not all of them, but these are the production staff that we measure. The green is billable time, and the orange is non-billable time, and everyone has a target to hit. There's a productivity or utilization target in terms of a percentage. So everyone, if you look on the top right, has 40 hours in the week, and we measure what percentage of hours they were able to track and bill. From that, we can actually work it back based on salaries, exactly how profitable each staff member is. But we can tell also from this if people are overworking. For example, Walter here has had a major video project in, and he's managed to, and this was early this morning, by the way. So in 3 days of work, he's physically tracked 24 hours. So he's actually done 8 hours of work a day tracking, which is really quite unbelievable and a lot. He's been hyper productive. This is not sustainable. He could not do this for 2-3 weeks in a row. So we would look at this and go, okay, maybe this can be balanced with one of the other design team. And it's just nice to be able to see this. Number one, it gives us profitability, and how utilized the staff is. Obviously, we want them fully utilized, but we don't want them overutilized, because in terms of sustainability, not an option. This is just a nice little report from HubSpot that we looked like. I believe this was last month. It has a target line in terms of revenue, and as the deals are closed, we track that according to our goals. So we have lots of these, and I'll show you a few of our dashboards just now, but they were really nice. I know who heads up some of the tech team inside the production team is always looking at this. And Bianca, with a revenue target, is also always looking at this. Just in terms of measuring it, so I mean, we've got these systems that push into dashboards. I mean, these are all based on dashboards. This is a a dashboard that actually sits inside on a big 60-inch screen inside our studio. And I know it's a little bit hard to see. It's powered by Zoho Analytics, and it plugs into our project management platform, which is Acello. It also plugs into HubSpot, which does all of our deal tracking. And it tells us in terms of the current stage, how our revenue is doing in terms of our targets. That's the bottom right. And then also the different teams. So if you're the top left, I know it's a little bit small, but is last week utilization total, and then design team utilization total. And then what it'll do is, I think there's 3 or 4 people in the design team. Instead of showing everyone, it just shows the guy who smashed it. So Walter smashed it again last week. But these sort of dashboards to just quickly be able to look at what's happening in the team are critically important. And there's a lot of different softwares that do it. I particularly like Databox and Zoho. But we've got some dashboards that just run on Google Sheets, and they work perfectly. Kish, I don't know if you want to comment about dashboards at all. I know you play a lot with this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think Google Sheets is a great option to kind of whip up a dashboard very quickly. You can just create a normal table as you would in a normal Excel sheet or Google Sheet, and then to generate the graphs and tables is super, super easy. And you can just drop them into a second tab on that same spreadsheet. So definitely, if you need to get a dashboard out quickly, Google Sheets is a great option.
And I'm just thinking here, one thing that I didn't put on here, which is a very great tool, but Microsoft Power BI is great as well. Cool. So critical, and I know a lot of people have got this, but a lot of people actually haven't, is cloud access for files. So we made a rule a while ago that we're not allowed to use Microsoft Word, Excel for anything work-related. I use it for, I like the Excel side of it because you can really crunch numbers in it, but anything that actually is for the company and needs to be shared or saved for prosperity goes into Google Drive. Dropbox does the same trick. The added thing with people working remotely is that everyone is on laptops. And if laptops go missing and things are not on Google Drive or Dropbox, it's a big problem. A few types of work, and Kish has this with his development team, cannot be put into Google Drive or Dropbox. There are code repositories available, but what we do with that is the developers use a backup system called Backblaze. It's $50 a month. It backs up basically your entire computer or a folder, and all of their code is constantly sent back to Backblaze. And if a laptop goes missing, we have all the data. And in fact, if it goes missing, we can literally restore it. The next day, they will actually courier a hard drive for, I think, about a $100 fee or a $200 fee around the world, anywhere in the world, including the hard drive with your data on overnight. So Backblaze is really, really good. In fact, our servers are also backed up with Backblaze. And then the last thing, and not everyone needs this, but certainly in our game as a digital consultancy, we use LastPass for passwords. The dreaded spreadsheet with passwords is all too common. It's a major security problem. So softwares like LastPass, and there's LastPass Teams, not expensive, great way to, in the cloud, share and secure passwords. You can use systems like Google Authenticate to make sure that they're really, really secure, but LastPass works like a treat. Kish, or Bianca, anything you guys want to say around just remote access for files?
So for me, obviously, I do a lot of proposals and contractual stuff for customers. So even though I do have access to Google Drive and to actually pop all of the information on there, I just, if one of the team members wants to know what was the last communication with regards to a cost estimate or anything like that, I just refer them to the contact on our CRM. So then they've got insight as to the document and also the conversation that I had with that customer as well. So in terms of accessing those types of files that I often work with, HubSpot's definitely the one for me to utilize the best way.
Okay.
I think just to add, a great part of using Google Drive when working remotely is it gives you a live view. So somebody updates something on a sheet and everybody else who's got access to it can see it straight away. It just makes working remotely so much easier.
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, so we had it about 5 years ago in this business. We had a theft and a whole bunch of stuff went missing. And thankfully everything was backed up to servers, but it was still it still took us about 20 days to put the office back together again. At the moment, if our entire office just fell down or burnt down, basically we could be up and running the very next day with all our files. I mean, we'd have to do an insurance claim for computers, but people could access all their files from any computer, go into an internet cafe, or we could rent computers and bring everything up. There is nothing in this business that we would lose, and I think maybe that's probably what helped us go remote so easily. And these are our major tools to do it with, and then obviously HubSpot, which is our CRM. Any file that's been sent to a client or any interaction is all stored in there. Obviously, the other thing is Gmail. We don't have a mail server or an Outlook server. It's all just Gmail. Makes things much easier. Okay.
So,
yeah.
Luke, I just wanted to kind of add to the risk of not having something cloud-based or having that backed up. With the previous agency I worked at, we actually got robbed as well, but they actually took our servers as well. So we had some long-standing clients that were our clients for about 6-7 years. And what that meant was, we stored a lot of their CI as it progressed over the years and stuff like that. And they obviously have a lot of people moving parts. So new people join and that role gets replaced with someone new. So they're kind of dependent in some ways to say, cool, do you have this older version of our CI or the latest version? And what actually really crippled the business and actually led to a lot of retrenchment was we had to make up we had to redesign a lot of the work that we had lost, that we were responsible for. And that financially crippled the business because that was work we had to redo, but we actually couldn't bill for it. So I think that's something in today's day and age is making sure that whatever you do, there is a cloud-based storage for you, that it's not so dependent on an on-site server.
Yeah, in fact, that business, I mean, you told me about it, that business actually never recovered and it is no longer.
No, which actually was a massive result as of that theft.
Okay, so now this is something you probably wouldn't think about being part of remote working, but company values, and this is something that's very important at Mo Agency, are important because they drive the actions and decision-making of all the staff, irrespective of whether they're in the office or out of the office. And we hold all of our staff accountable to these. This is actually just a picture of what's on our wall next to our boardroom. And these are our 5 values. And I mean, when we run our KPIs, we run them on a quarterly basis, and we sit with our team. Each one of them is measured against these values. And I know values are often fluffy, but when people are working remotely, these things have to be pushed very strongly. And if everyone is directing their actions and their decision makings by the company values, it really does tie the team together, whether they're in the office or remotely. And then just a little bit about a policy. For HR, and think many people an HR a remote working policy, but these are some of the things or the headliners that are in ours. So what day should people be in the office? For example, when we're running not in this quarantined coronavirus phase, Mondays and Fridays are not remote office days because they are generally where all the major stand-ups are, all the connects on a Monday, and the work is scheduled for the week ahead. Fridays, we're closing off everything, and we want it just to be a nice social close-off for the week. So decide on those days. Meeting etiquette. You've got to turn up on time for meetings. Everyone has got to schedule work properly and meetings properly with advanced time so people can work around it. I mean, this is normal office stuff, but it tends to sometimes fall on its head when you work remotely. And then attendance. When people are not in the office, often there are problems. When everyone can see everyone getting up and going to a meeting, oh, there's a meeting. You'd be surprised, and we've had it a few times this week, where people just don't rock up for meetings because they're so involved in work, and they don't see everyone stand up and go to the meetings. They actually miss the meetings. We have to give them a call. Around online communication, so on chat, be responsive, be available, respect people's communication preferences. So in Slack, if someone has said do not disturb, so they're actually doing a block of work, and I know this is big time for the animators, the designers, and the developers at our company. That has to be respected. Everyone sits in the office, and you walk up and you go, hey, can I help you? In this office, if someone's got their headphones on, we said, please, unless it's like life or death, don't bug them, because it just means that they're involved with something. But respect the communication preferences. So presence, be it in a Microsoft application or Slack, respect that. And then just policy around requesting the remote working. Is it a form? We don't use forms. We just speak to the manager involved, and obviously your metrics need to be correct. If you've hit your targets and your KPIs the week before, you have access to remote working. And then obviously there needs to be a shared calendar. If you have a remote day, it needs to be in there so everyone can see and plan around it accordingly. Kish, do you want to add anything on that?
I think that last point is really important, the shared calendar. That just allows, just gives awareness to the whole team that somebody is offsite, allows you to plan meetings. It's just a really important factor in remote working.
Yep. And the cool thing, these are very simple things. Sorry, Bianca?
No. So the only thing that I wanted to add is I think for us as a team, as MO, we have that, that precedent set that if the meeting is starting at directly 8 o'clock, try to be online at 5 to 8. Just kind of get yourself ready for that meeting, because a lot of people might already be on that meeting link, for example, and it's kind of when you're coming in, it kind of takes an extra 5 to 10 minutes to get everyone huddled up and ready to get going. So if you take that precedent of starting yourself and getting ready 5 minutes before the actual meeting time, you know that when you're going to have that meeting, you are on time, starting at 8, and you're a little bit more productive because everyone's kind of starting on time. So I know that's something we adhere to quite strictly at our offices. So just a little piece of advice from my side on that.
Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, because the meeting starts at 8 doesn't mean you arrive at 8. Arrive a little bit before. Especially with remote, there's generally some technical difficulties. Someone's struggling, so don't underestimate that as well. Okay, so I'm just gonna tell you what our tech stack is, and then I'll go into our web browser and just click through things a bit. And that's the last thing. I mean, that's the last slide. Looks like we'll wrap up a bit early, and we'll take a few questions if anyone wants to ask. There's chat. So our centralized client communication is HubSpot CRM. Our sales and revenue tracking is HubSpot Sales. Lead gen, HubSpot Marketing. Live chat is Slack. And bear in mind, these are all interconnected. Project management and scheduling of work is Cello. Collaborative documents and notes that is G Suite, Drive, Sheets, Slides, Docs. Client comms is Gmail. We do have a few Slack channels with some of our clients if they're using Slack. Video comms, Zoom and Google Hangouts. Dashboards, HubSpot, Zoho Analytics, and Acello. Accounting is Xero. which is integrated into a number of our systems, including HubSpot and our project management system. Quite nice, because when you, in the project management system, when you wrap it up, you push it over to be invoiced. You can tell the profitability on the jobs. And then our backup is Backblaze. We also use a few, our servers are backed up actually by Backblaze and locally with Apple Time Machine. But that's our tech stack. Let me go over to a web browser and just show you all around. And if you have a question, just pop it in the chat. So let me find this. Oop. Kish and B, are people able to see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen. I can see HubSpot dashboards.
Okay, brilliant. I'm just going to move this across. Right. Okay, so let's start off here. So this is, I mean, HubSpot really, I mean, we're a diamond HubSpot partner. So, I mean, this is obviously, you know, we live and breathe this stuff. There are a lot of other solutions that do very similar things. We prefer HubSpot, but let me show you how we look at our data on a daily basis to see what happens. So the team is, everyone is involved in marketing the business. Everyone is jumping on social media. Everyone is writing articles, and the sales team are communicating with people. The client services team are communicating with people, and all of this is going into here and fueling our data to allow us to market more accurately to our customer base and our potential customers. So very easily, I can look at our marketing performance. We upped quite a bit month on month. This is the last 30 days, so we had a 25% increase on the previous 30 days. Just as the year gets going, it tends to accelerate. We added 166 new contacts and customers. These are not always net new. A lot of these are existing customers within extra people within our existing customer base. I can look at our landing page performance, our total submissions, our email performance, social interactions, blog views. I can see who's coming back to our website, so returning contacts, 2 or more sessions. I can see Sam is coming a lot. She's actually been to our website 32 times in the last 30 days. So all of these people are involved with us. I see Tion's there, which is a great thing. Tion's on the call right now. We can see our landing pages that are converting and our top blog posts, all in one dashboard, which is fantastic. Then I'm going to go over to the sales dashboard. I'm sort of bearing all here, and these are the sales we closed for last month. You can see there's our target line. I can see the sales performance. So we created 134 contacts. We assigned 83. We had 221 different contacts that were worked by the business, and we created 46 new deals and closed 31 last month. In terms of productivity, and this is really, really important, this measures customer-facing product folk at our company. So we sent 800 emails. It's up. We had a few less replies. I don't know why that is, but maybe it's because we sent a few extra ones. We created 115 tasks, 37 meetings, 19 notes, 15 calls. Now, this, I've got to be honest, is not something our staff track very well. It's something we've got to work on. So that should be a hell of a lot more. And all of our deals closed. That's the sales dashboard. So now we go across to our project management platform. And the nice thing is HubSpot is integrated into this. So any contacts that are created in HubSpot, whether it's a lead, a customer, those contacts are available within Acello. If I close a task in HubSpot. So this is the utilization dashboard. It's exactly what I showed you previously. And as I said, Walter's been overdoing the utilization. what we do is in our company, we expect 70% utilization of your time. Walter, in 3 days, has almost smashed all of it, so he's done incredibly well. And this we can slice and dice by team. I look at this every single day, as well as a few other people at the company. Bianca,
can I add something there, Luke?
Yeah.
Sorry. So I think some people might kind of, understand or try to understand how does that translate for someone that's sales in the business.
Mm-hmm.
So how this helps me from a sales perspective is I can see who in the company in terms of what departments are actually hectically busy. So, for example, if our video team is super busy for the last 2-3 weeks, for example, and I can see what's up and coming, I know what I can commit to when I'm seeing a prospect. If they want a 10 video series in the next 2 weeks, I can set that expectation to say, we can't get that done in 2 weeks, for example. This is when we've got capacity. So I think the worst thing from a sales perspective is to commit to a delivery on a project, but we as salespeople don't have insight as to what is actually our capacity availability for our different departments. So this helps us as salespeople to make sure what do we need to sell, or where do we kind of just need to take the foot off the throttle to make sure we first get those projects out before committing to new projects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean this data can be sliced and diced in a million different ways. I mean, if we go into Walter here, you'll probably, because he's been pushing this one project, he will. You can actually see he's put most of his hours onto this Marley pipe systems over here. But we can see exactly where he's been working on and where. And we also get, obviously, we can tell exactly the profitability on that. So jump into here. We can actually, on a weekly basis, see exactly what the cost of the work was and the revenue produced. So obviously this week is a bit down because we haven't finished the week yet. But this line, if we actually graph it over time, because we look at it so much over the period, the difference between the cost and the revenue has really moved out quite a lot. And when you're working remotely, this kind of thing, I know we're a consulting firm, and I mean, this is not applicable to all of you guys, but I think it just shows you the sort of level of detail you can get into when you're working remotely. And you can actually, I can split this down into different teams. I can split it down into different individuals, and I can actually tell if someone is being underutilized, whether they're not profitable, whether they are profitable, and it really just helps the business succeed and the load be shared across the team effectively. Revenue dashboard, so we can tell exactly which clients are bringing in revenue. We keep little dashboards for each of our clients. We've got a number of these, and we just keep an eye on where the cash is coming from. Then this is a really nice one. This is some of our clients that we work with, and what I can do is see when the last activity date was, so the last meeting, the last task, and then I can also see when they were last contacted. So if we've got a list of clients that are really important to us, we can actually see who's being contacted. We can actually set automations to say, if Merchant Tech Capital hasn't been contacted in 2 weeks, please message the account manager on that. But we can see exactly who's being contacted. So, I mean, these guys were all contacted last week. I brought this screen up earlier in the day, so this will probably have changed. But at the time when I just refreshed this report, it's probably about 9 o'clock. That's who we contacted so far for the day. So just a nice screen, and to be able to see who's being contacted and who hasn't. And if your account managers are working remotely, you want to just be making sure that your important customers are being contacted regularly. This is the dashboard that I was talking about that actually sits up in our offices, but everyone has access to it. So we've got team winners in terms of utilization. We've got new business revenue, existing business revenue, and we track all of this. So team winners, team utilization, total utilization, and revenue on this dashboard. And this dashboard kind of runs the organization. I look at this and I can tell instantly whether we're on track for a good month or a bad month on a weekly basis. Slack, I'm sure you guys are all familiar with this kind of thing, but this works really, really well. There's a Zoom integration into here. So if I want to have a meeting with Ashley, I've got a little integration in here. I just go Zoom, and it actually, it starts, and you see there's a little pop-up that's popped here. Lucas started a meeting. It's actually, I'm just leave that. No one's going to join it, so I'll just leave it running. But these sort of integrations make life really easy. So anyone in the company can just go /Zoom, and a meeting link pops up, and then they can join it. Works really, really nicely. And that's kind of all I wanted to show in terms of integration and how everything works together. Are there any questions? I know, Kish, you answered a few questions from some people. Kish, Bianca, while anyone's writing any questions, do you want to comment anything?
I think for me, from a sales perspective, because you know, we as business development people, we tend to have that face-to-face, you know, meeting with people. As I mentioned earlier, we still kind of buy from people. But for me, it hasn't slowed down in terms of sales whatsoever. A lot of our business is international based, and that just means we actually can't have that actual face-to-face meeting with them in the same room. So there's no real difference to, you know, how my sales process works. I think the biggest obstacle that I have kind of been getting is some companies aren't 100% equipped with their internal telecoms and how they can actually host meetings. So they might not have all of that video equipment, you know, solved. But, you know, there's a lot of easy and cheap kind of measures that you can take, you know, purchase, you know, a dash cam or a webcam from Takealot. So there is options that the guys can use. And I think that's the biggest thing, is these more kind of the older traditional companies, they still want to have that face-to-face. And I think what this situation in SA has allowed us is to kind of subtly push people into the form of technology and adapt to that curve that we are actually on. And I think what will happen for the future is people actually won't go back to, you know, going to the old school measures, because they are adopting to technology in this time period, are actually going to keep that in place, because they will find that it is going to be a little bit more suitable for them. So I think that just from a sales perspective, that's kind of my challenge that I see, but I do see some positive coming out of that as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something as well. Is we've spoken about us as a team working remotely, but how does it work when you work with a client who's remotely? So we've got a client down in Durban, and what's worked very well is Trello, which is a completely free tool, and it's a great project management tool if you've got multiple teams working on the same thing from multiple locations. So Ikorka's dev team and down in Durban, and our dev team up here in Joburg have a live view of what our responsibilities are, what their responsibilities are, where things are at what stage. So Trello is definitely a great option for you if you're working remotely.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kish. I mean, one of the things that we do need to state there is every 2 to 3 weeks, we fly down to Durban to go spend a day with them and their teams. So you know, and we find we get a huge amount done in those meetings, and the ability to just sit and have someone come into the room and have a chat and ask questions cannot be underestimated. But pretty much that entire job has been done remotely, which, yeah, it's interesting. And you're right, I didn't actually include it. It's a good tool to include. Trello is a fantastic tool. It's not something that we use too much, because we actually use a Cello for it, for project management, but it does work well. Kish, I see there's just a question from Calvin there. You just answer that. Everyone, that was a really quick tour of remote working. And like Kish said, there's a lot of different tools. Trello is something we don't use hugely here. We're using it on this particular project. There's many different ways you can do it. But I hope we've shared some insights on how we do it and how you could potentially improve your process. It's going remote this week has really kind of brought to the fore a few cracks we've got in our systems, and certainly with our stand-ups, and it's been very insightful, and it's allowed us to fix things, which is really great. So we've seen it as a positive, and I think when we all come back together again, I think we're going to be a lot stronger going forward with some of those issues ironed out. So do expect going remote to expose a few little cracks, but use it as a positive to fix them. And that's it from us. Thank you very much for joining us. We will send an on-demand recording out to everyone. So please share it with anyone that you might find, you think might find it useful. And thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your time. Have a great day. Thanks, Kish. Thanks, Bea.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Cheers.